Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to our explainer. Today, we are tackling what is literally one of the most massive, high-stakes debates in human history. We're looking at the ultimate showdown between physics, the human mind, and machine intelligence. And the goal, to answer a question that changes absolutely everything about how we view ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Do we actually have free will, or is the entire concept of choice just a complete fabrication?
I want you to think about this for a second, like really ground yourself in this exact moment. When you clicked to watch this explainer today, was that truly your conscious choice, or was it just the inevitable, unavoidable result of physics? Think about it. Were the atoms in your brain literally destined to make you click it since the very dawn of time?
So, one of our sources presents this terrifying, super dramatic thesis from the determinist perspective, and wow, it really hits hard. They state, "We are just observers, watching how the universe unfolds within us." It brings up this deep-seated existential fear, right? What if we're nothing more than complex biological robots, completely at the mercy of the cosmos, just kind of along for the ride without any real say in the destination?
Part 1. The Physics of Choice.
To unpack this fear, we first need to look at the cold, hard laws of reality. We're placing the profound mystery of human consciousness right up against the unyielding, mathematically precise laws of the physical universe. And this brings us to the core of determinism. The argument here is that, at our most fundamental level, we are all just made of physical particles. And you know, these particles have no motivation, no desires, no will, and certainly no freedom. They just blindly follow immutable physical laws. If every decision we make is just the predetermined result of these particles bouncing around in our brains, strictly based on their previous states, well, then our behavior is entirely predetermined too. And the source clarifies a really important point here. Even if you introduce quantum mechanics, where an electron randomly moves left or right, that quantum randomness still doesn't equal conscious control. It's still just a random physical process deciding your actions. Actually, scratch that, deciding the outcome, not the conscious you.
Part 2. Emergence and Human Consciousness. But hey, don't despair just yet, because there's an incredibly powerful counterargument to this purely physical view of the universe. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of emergent properties. The defender of free will in our source material points out that reality isn't flat. No, it's organized into incredibly complex layers. Take carbon atoms, for example. By themselves, they aren't alive in any sense of the word. But when you arrange them in highly complex molecular structures, boom, life miraculously emerges. Fundamentally new properties appear that just didn't exist at the lower levels. And the exact same logic applies to the brain. A single neuron can't think. But when you connect billions of them into a vast neural network, fundamentally new properties emerge, things like human consciousness, reasoning, and potentially true free will. We can't examine free will at the subatomic level. We absolutely have to examine it at the cognitive level.
Our source brilliantly illustrates this point using a fantastic metaphor from computer science. Think about the hardware level, the transistors, the electrical currents. This level is entirely deterministic, bound strictly by the laws of physics. But then you have the code level, the software, the algorithms. If a computer scientist wants to understand or debug a program's behavior, they don't whip out a microscope to examine the electrical currents in the transistors, right? No, they look at the code. The argument here is that human choice operates precisely at this causal layer of consciousness. We process internal reasons, beliefs, and values, and that abstract processing actually has real causal power in the physical world.
But then, the determinist steps right back in with a massive synthesis question. If they're right and free will is completely an illusion governed by underlying physics, why do we feel it so deeply? Why does the feeling of making a choice feel so undeniably real to every single one of us?
The answer, fascinatingly enough, might lie in our evolutionary history. According to the source, our brains may have evolved this so-called illusion of free will simply because it kept our ancestors alive and functioning. Just look at these massive evolutionary advantages. First, it gives us the sheer motivation to act and strive for survival. I mean, if we thought our fate was sealed, we'd probably just give up, right? Second, it forms the entire foundation for responsibility, accountability, and justice in our societies. Third, it provides a mental model to predict how others will behave, assuming they have their own motivations. Fourth, it fiercely protects our mental health from deep depression and existential hopelessness. And finally, it drives continuous learning and adaptation because we truly believe we can make better choices next time. It's an illusion, sure, but man, it's an incredibly effective one.
Part 3. Can AI have free will?
Now, let's take a fascinating detour into the future.
Because if human biology is this complex, what happens when we try to recreate it in silicon? The debate over AI consciousness is heavily contested right now. On one side, the argument is that AI is just executing objective functions. Even the absolute most advanced models are ultimately just sequences of deterministic calculations doing exactly what we programmed them to do. But the other side argues, well, if human free will is an emergent property of sufficient complexity, what happens when an AI algorithm crosses that threshold? Could a sufficiently complex system actually spark genuine self-awareness and cross over from mere simulation to true conscious agency?
Our source actually details a specific criteria for how we might one day recognize if an AI has achieved true free will. We wouldn't just be looking for complex outputs. Instead, we'd look for genuine self-reference and reflection, like an AI truly understanding the concept of I think. We'd look for purposeful autonomy, meaning the system sets its own independent goals entirely outside of its human programming. We'd also look for creative and unpredictable innovation that completely breaks away from existing algorithms. And finally, independent ethical understanding, where the AI forms its own values and can actually resist external commands when they conflict with its internal ethics. Wild to think about, right?
Let's move to and see how this builds. Part 4, How to Reflect on Choices.
Because whether you believe your choices are an evolutionary illusion keeping you sane or a beautiful emergent property of your complex consciousness, we still have to wake up and navigate the real world every single day. So, the absolute crucial point is how we reflect on the choices we make. The defender of free will in our source argues that true freedom isn't magically escaping the laws of physics. No, it's the ability to act based on your own internal causal factors, rather than just reacting blindly to your environment. So here is a super practical framework derived from that argument. Step 1. Consciously examine the internal reasons behind your impulses. Step 2. Clearly identify what your underlying personal values actually are. And Step 3. Act deliberately based on that conscious reflection. By doing this, you are ensuring that you're operating at the highest, most complex level of your own code.
Which leaves us with this final, truly profound thought to just stare at in existential wonder. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and make your very first decision of the day, are you the author of your next choice? Or are you just a character blindly playing out the code?